So welcome folks, we'll get started in just a minute. Feel free to put your name and your firm information into the chat function so that our presenters can know who is attending. And we'll get started in just a minute. So as you sign in, feel free to put your name and firm information in that chat function so our speakers can know who else is attending, and we'll get started in just a minute. All right, well, welcome everyone to the second installment of our Storytelling with Architects. This week we are featuring Angela Morton. A note up top about how this webinar will function. All of the participants are going to be muted, but you will have the option to interject or ask any questions through either the chat or the Q&A function. We'll keep an eye on that. Feel free to jump in if you want to say anything. We are a small team, so we can't really troubleshoot for you, unfortunately, during the webinar, but you should have received an email with information about calling in prior to this webinar, and you can always just call that number to join us on your phone. If you do end up using that option, just email your name and your AIA number to lauren@aianeworleans.org if you want to get credit for the session. So today we'll hear from Angela Morton, then we'll have a brief Q&A, and then we will close out with some upcoming events from the AIA New Orleans. So I will hand it over to our president, Terry Dreyer, to introduce Angela.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're very happy that you're here to participate in our Storytelling with Architects, Humanizing the Architectural Condition. And we are abundantly excited to have Angela Morton as one of our storytelling participants. She is the principal with Mathis Briere Architects, where she's worked since 2005. After completing the undergraduate architecture and English degrees at University of Virginia, Angela spent 3 years as an intern architect in New Orleans before finishing her master's in architecture at the University of Michigan. She returned to New Orleans just in time for Katrina, lucky her. Her work practice spans from office, medical, utility infrastructure to school, PK through university, and cultural facility projects. As a LEED accredited professional, she was a team member for the first LEED Gold certified office building in the state of Louisiana, and has applied LEED principles to numerous projects, including the pre-K through 8 school at North Kenilworth. She's been involved with the AIA since college, representing and connecting at national AIAS conferences, as the State Associate Director, Local Chapter Board positions, the New Orleans Chapter President, and is currently the AIA Louisiana Chapter President. Welcome, Angela.
Thanks, Terry. Thank you for doing this too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's good to chat with you.
No, absolutely. So clearly after reading that incredible, beautiful bio, I need to ask you, when did you first go to New Orleans and why?
Yeah. So I actually came to New Orleans after college, right? Like mentioned in there. I grew up in Oklahoma, and kind of like my dad, who grew up in the Northeast, wanted to be 500 miles from home where I started my career. So New Orleans seemed like a great place to do architecture, you know, the history of the city. And I had a bit of a family connection too. My parents actually met down here in New Orleans and then had promptly moved to Oklahoma, to Tulsa, and myself and my brothers grew up there. So I came back, and it was kind of, it was a different time back in 2000. We didn't have all these, you know, fancy phones back then, so you could look up firms on the fly. I beat the pavement for a few weeks and passed around physical resumes, if you can believe it. When I first started working, I even brought a roll of Mylar drawings with me. I was super proud of doing in college. and didn't know how weird it was. Also didn't realize it was extremely hot to carry around those things on the streetcar, you know, roll, roll, roll here. So anyway, made adjustments to my choice of dress after that first day of interviews. So yeah, so that was it. Also had a brother that still lived in New Orleans. So it was a good safety net for me, for my parents to say, yeah, you still got family here. That works. So,
That's pretty amazing.
anyway,
You had Mylar drawings. That's incredible. I want to see some of those. We can compare.
yeah, totally.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
What pen set did you like best? Yeah.
Yes, I know, right? And then what number did you use the most?
Yeah.
Mm.
0.2.
And
Yeah.
so what is architecture? So moving forward and throughout your career, can you give us a brief synopsis and if architecture is what you thought it would be, and almost in thinking that through, how has it changed, influenced, disappointed, exalted, made you proud throughout your career? Like what are those high points and low points? If you could give us a little bit of information on that.
Yeah. You want to stay on the phone for another 6 hours? We can do that. We could do that.
Do that in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
This is, it's been a really interesting, getting asked to do this. It's been really interesting just to kind of look back and say, hey, what do I have to give, to share with people professionally, how I think the profession's changed, what's been really important, what's been motivating for me, what's been challenging, and kind of think about those highlights, right? And there's like a few stories that pop out, thinking about history. Of course, your first job and the first person that you work for, and then your first mentor, that was one thing for sure. And I don't know if anybody on the phone knows Maria Papahara-Lambos, but she was with Wagner and Ball for a long time, and was working at Perez when I first met her. And stepping into that office for the first time and working with her, one, as a female mentor, was incredible. And I didn't realize just how important it was until after I'd left, many years later, to be working with someone where just immediately it was, okay, we're on the same page. There's no pretense about what this relationship is. I'm here to teach you stuff, and there's no BS about it. Was just great, right? And one of my very first memories was a very humbling experience, after working really hard on a set of drawings for a courthouse, and I thought I was doing so awesome. I learned all the stuff. I learned CAD on the job, right? Back then, we didn't know CAD in college. Well, yeah, I printed out this set, and of course you print it out, and it takes half a day to print out the set because you had those plotters that just go, finish the set, put it on her desk, so proud of it. She takes out her big red pen, this is blue, but it was red, starts in on the drawings. I had misspelled the word toilet all over the drawings. Just every single place you could find the word toilet, it was a toilet. And that was just, ultimately, it was a very humbling experience because it was expensive to print drawings. You just ruined a half a roll of paper to do this. And I'll never forget that, and I am now the spelling queen for drawings in the office, like since that day. I will check spelling every single time, right? So that was it. Exhilarating moments. Oh, for sure. That first project you get that's yours to design. That was, that little piece of something that you can lay claim to. You say, this is mine. I have detailed that piece. That's exhilarating. And then you go get it built, and it may or may not get built the way you thought it would. So that's the next step, right? And you say, and then through the career, and we can talk about this more as we go on, it's been really fun for me to work with different people, just understanding how different people work, how they get excited about architecture, what motivates them. I've had this reputation, and my partners will tell me this, I was extremely shy as a kid, but you probably wouldn't know that about me now. My personality has evolved because of architecture and what you have to do to get people to work on things together, to be, right? It's true, right?
That's a really good point, that it does craft and create your personality. I love that. That's a really good statement to make. Yeah.
Yeah, and it flows naturally, right? Because the creativity came from a very quiet place, from a place of wanting to do things, on my own, to, do this photography that was so internal, like this is my brain, you can see it on the screen, to doing these projects that you have to collaborate with engineers, with other people in your office, and you have to communicate what you want to have happen, right? And it started out through school like this, right? You've got to present your projects. You have to present it in a convincing way to people. It's even more true in real life to clients. If you're not excited about the thing that you're doing, Lord knows they won't be, right? You got to love it, what you're doing, and you got to sell, right? So that's, now looking back, that I've been a principal of a firm for 8 years, that's to me, is that translation of selling has become a very natural component of it, because I love what it is that we're doing, right? So I'm going to sell the things that I love, and I'm going to explain why this is so awesome. And that comes through to the office too. So that's my other role now too, is to engage and encourage people to say, yeah, you can do it. You don't know how, you don't know what you're doing yet, but you can research that. You've got skills, you could figure it out. You can ask people, and just sort of boost that level of confidence in the unknown.
Right. Those are two incredibly good points to make about, when a person asks what has architecture, is architecture what you thought it would be? And you just actually explained greatly about how, greatly, but you explained very well how it not only has helped your communication skills, but it's also exposed your personality, and then has now helped you to mentor others. And these are things that you probably, when you first began, never thought that was what architecture would actually lead to. Whereas in, the idea of the profession itself, which I think is incredible. How did you find, and maybe how that could act, tapping back into the idea of architecture and your history, how did you find your mentors? Were they all women? Did they, you mentioned one, but how did that happen throughout your profession so far, at least?
Yeah, it was less of a I'm looking for a mentor and I'm going to go find them and ask them to be my mentor, than kind of identifying people I wanted to have that relationship with. I mean, that walking up to someone and saying, please mentor me, is not my thing. Like, it's some people's thing to say, I want help from you, show me everything you know. I have found mentors through the AIA, and through those friendships too. One that is not, I won't call her a mentor, because I haven't pushed her relationship, but she's been someone I greatly admire in the profession, and what she's done throughout it. And this happened at the first state AIA board meeting that I went to as an associate. I hadn't been on any local chapter professionally boards at this point, and got asked by my current boss to see if I would fill this position, which is an appointed position, and just show up to the board. This was 2006, so directly after Katrina. And walking into this boardroom with, not kidding you, 30 men, all gray hair, and there was 3 women. 2 of them were the staff members for AIA New Orleans, and one of them was another architect. But her presence in the room was just like, she was there. And it was Dodie Spencer Smith.
She's going to be on. She agreed to do this too. So that's great.
Excellent. Okay, so glad to hear that. So, and I remember sitting through this meeting going, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know when I'm supposed to talk. This is a whole bunch of stuff over my head. There's these acronyms, blah, blah. I don't know what they're doing. And also it was boring. And then Dodie piped in all of a sudden, and she's like, I have something to say. I can't believe we're all sitting around here and we have this issue going on and no one's talking about it. I said, oh, okay, this could get interesting. What's going on? We were in this post-Katrina haze of building going on all over the state, just sort of willy-nilly. And she was raising this really important issue about, she's seeing construction projects going up without inspectors, without inspections, without proper PPE on contractors. She said, what are we going to do about it? And that's when I thought, oh, wow, okay, well, this is an organization we could get fired up about something. This sounds pretty good. I will take that. So that idea of getting fired up about something is just something that's, lived with me for a while. Have all my mentors been women? Certainly not. Ken Schwartz, who's the former dean of Tulane, was actually a professor of mine at UVA, and he was a huge mentor for me in that sense of thoughtful composure about what you're doing and presenting yourself in this way that is incredibly professional, at many times, and that, that just clicked for me too. And a lot of my mentors have also been colleagues that have just, shown me, I watched them work and show, just kind of mirroring their attitudes about certain things or that. So I'd say, yeah, they've been all over the place. That's my short mentor story.
Got it.
Am I talking too fast for anybody? Am I mumbling? Can we all hear you?
No, but I do want to touch on, you talked about Dodie Schmidt and the fact that you had to go to that AI meeting. Is that how you first became how you became first involved in the AIA? How did that happen? When did that happen? And what road has the AIA taken you on to date?
Yeah, I did get involved in college with the AIA. We had a very strong AIAS chapter as an undergraduate, even more strong than the student body government, who ran a lot of things for the school. And through that, the coolest thing I did with that was going to the national conferences. Took a trip to Pittsburgh and to Toronto different years. And that meeting of other students and professionals, like in that setting, that was the absolute best thing that I could have done, right? It was that first step towards opening myself up to being a more outgoing person, because that's not something I would have chosen to do on my own. I would have rather travel around Europe by myself and talk to no one, right, at that age. But going to a conference and having to communicate, share ideas, and be that kind of person sort of stepped into it. And it opened me up to this idea that the profession is greater than any one person's body of work, right? And there are things we can accomplish through that together from an advocacy standpoint for cities, for schools, for whatever, for the future. So that was the greatest thing. And then in my professional life, when I started out there, I got really involved in construction early on, and then ran chaired the construction event in New Orleans for a number of years. Again, meeting people from other firms, that was the best part about that, right? That was that level of networking and feeling like I was doing something positive while networking, and not just networking to network. So funnily enough, and you meet people that you run into years later, right? So I remember 2 or 3 years into running this, one year the Priestley School of Architecture entered in competition, and it was a pretty challenging thing to do for a group of high schoolers to build these structures out of canned food. It was 10,000 cans, raise all the money, do all that stuff. I met someone, Jared Huter, who was actually the current dean of the school. Really smart dude, very young. And I remember my first impressions of him were like, are you sure you're the dean? Because I'm pretty sure you just graduated high school. You look like you're 19 years old. And turns out he was 23 or something at the time, but just an amazing person. And then years later, after the Priestley School had gone away, unfortunately folded, he was back out looking for a traditional architecture role and called us because of that connection, that we had made so many years before, right? So it's that connection that you make 5 years before that you don't know is important to you later. And Jared was actually kind of our lead person on the Kenilworth School. That was that opening slide that's after this slide. He was one of the driving forces in that project. Yeah, that was an interiors of it, and this is on the bottom left. So it was a big job too. Back then it was probably my 3rd year into being a studio manager that we did that job. And and he was still a young architect, but extremely driven. And just that you don't know where your relationships will take you and who you meet.
That's actually pretty intriguing that you've gotten all the way, you've gone through and you've said communicating is huge, being able to telegraph your ideas. And now this is the idea of relationships, right? So it starts to simulate how your processes, your thoughts, and how your career has unfolded, and the things that are important, not only for the profession, but also for yourself. I don't know what happened. There you go. It's redoing. I applaud that, which is where my next question is what is different now rather than 20 years ago when you first started the profession? If you looked at the profession in its totality as a landscape, what is it? What happened? What was going on in the beginning of what you see architecture then, clearly with Mylar drawings and arguments over lead weight, as well as the spell check, and then not, which would be the implementation, the construction document part, but also where are you now and what do you see architecture today? And perhaps in the future, where do you see those important parts unfolding?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a few fundamental things that are always going to be there, and good architecture's got to rely on one, that basic communication is not just between your team, but it's between you and your client too. And this is something that I wanted to mention too, that it's been one of my other mentors that's, is my partner now too, Ed Mathis, that this idea that architecture is done in a collaboration. It's not, yeah, it is. There's something about the brilliant idea and you get the light bulb over your head and you can bring that forward, but it's done because you've been listening. You've been listening to what your clients wanted to do. You've been listening to what the budget has to do, the site wants you to do. You've been listening to your engineers, like all of those people together. And then you drive that idea and you keep driving that idea all the way through. So no matter the tools that we use, it's always that implementation that's so important. And I feel like it's even more so now, right? Especially now, like we've got to say it, we're all sitting in different parts of the world right now around our computer. It's got to be something that you do even through this medium to communicate that you're still part of a team, to continue to drive that thing forward. I think the thing that I've seen and I think is the most challenging thing to date right now is that the tools of production are, you can't limit the tools of production to just one or two people on your team, that everyone needs to have access to what you're doing, right? It was different when I could lean over my drawing and say, oh yeah, I see what you're doing here in this elevation, but have you thought about what happened, in the section? And we have this site planning issue because the landscape architect could see your drawing and says, I know I need more room for this over here. So making space for that conversation, that collaboration, even in the digital world, so that everyone has access to the same materials and is providing the same level of input. To me, that's one of the biggest challenges. And then the other one is just this complete transformation of the way we think about who is in the workplace and what they're doing there. It's moms and it's dads, right? It's young people and it's older people. This is the point in our history when we've had the widest age group of people working ever, right? Like, I think that's something we all know and forget to acknowledge sometimes. The length of time in the workforce has increased, and therefore we have people who are working longer in their careers who have been here longer too. And at the same time, we have a population boom happening at one end of the spectrum. We have that lack of people in their late 40s and 50s who were to be the managers coming up, right? So now we're all pushing through this generation gap issue, learning how to do stuff, skipping a step, so it comes down to that communication issue again. I'm rambling.
No, you're not rambling. I was actually going to say there was this great, you've brought something to the fold that I wanted to mention and then have you tap into a little bit more, is that, we were always taught, especially our Mylar people, that that architects actually live on the periphery, right? We're these people that look either down or up, and we're constantly investigating or reviewing or analyzing space and people. And I think one of the things you just mentioned is that the world is different now. It's not that we are just doing that. We also now have to activate, and we we are within that community too. And I think that's really important to, I interpreted from what you just said, which I think is really important.
Totally.
Talking about that human element again, and that, we're all here. We're not just, we may have a
Up
special,
here.
right. We may have a special talent, but we are all as people, and we need to be able to communicate and coordinate and collaborate within that realm.
And, there's this huge aspect of science that's going on with our profession right now, right? Like the science of building engineering and efficiency and building efficiency and all that stuff. It's great, but it's not the compelling image that the client, or the compelling thought even, that the client usually gets when they want to start a project. So like, I want to do a project so I save the most energy on something. No, they want to do a project because they have a program, they have a school, they have a need, they have a cultural facility. They're a bunch of Germans who want to get together and drink beer all the time. Like that's their main focus, not necessarily everything else that we want to bring to that project too, right? So we have to show them there's all these other things you could be doing. I'm working with a church right now it's actually really exciting. They are renovating a historic building on Esplanade Avenue, and they're turning it into a community center. And the very first meeting we had with their community, and this has been going on for 6 or 7 years, and they finally gotten to the point of pulling the trigger and fundraising on it. The very first kind of let's get down to brass tacks meeting we were like, okay, we're going to talk schedule and budget and program. And they said, you know what, there's something else we want to talk about. We want to talk about what this project is going to do while you're building it for the community too. I said, oh, cool. Tell me more about this. Let's talk about it. So we're crafting a quote unquote DBE participation process with them. That's about what do you do to help bring these trades, these dying trades back to the neighborhood in Treme that they live in, right? Can we do something else besides the typical program? Just check the box with 35%. Like, that's the conversation they wanted to have. And, if we just said, okay, we're architects, we live in this box and that's what we do, we wouldn't get to the meat of why they want to do that and what's important. And that's going to drive some of our decisions about how we put this building together too.
That's really great. That's wonderful to hear that. Which actually speaks to the different types of committees we have and how architecture really is a large section cut of not just space, but people, environment, and everything, which then brings me to your LEED certification. Has that been, especially with the climate challenge that's been going on and the environment, do you all see a lot of focus on LEED certification? Do you see a lot of ability to educate your clients? Like you just spoke about the fact that, they come to you because they have a programmatic need, but exposing or educating them on other different facets is hugely important. How can you talk a little bit about how that works, or how you've been successful and even unsuccessful? It may be a doom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's been a challenge, and I'll say that because you are pushing on a lot of buttons for people. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be. It's kind of a ridiculous thing to think about, right? Like it was 2007 that the Chevron building got certified. No, 2008 in Louisiana, right? It's been 12 years. We've had this program, and at that point it was not a new program, right?
Right.
All of the schools, our $2 billion worth of schools projects that went through, every single one of them got LEED certified. The project that's up on the screen, that was one of those things. They were supposed to be LEED silver, right? And we actually had to pull back on applying for some of the points because we were going to get to LEED gold, and that was not acceptable for the program. And so there were so many obvious things that you could do already. A lot of people, we have a lot of resistance towards the name of it. I don't want to pay for the certification, the process, whatever. It's the instant gratification society problem. I want all the benefits and none of the costs. And I don't want to have an extra on my job now to save energy in the future. So honestly, that's been a challenge. And my attitude towards it, we've been sneaking it in to all of our projects, frankly.
That's great. Yeah.
So, it's things like you think about the orientation well, you choose better materials, and when it's a priority for them, you try to highlight that. And I think it's something that we don't do as a profession enough, is celebrating our small achievements in this way more and sharing them. Yeah, the picture on the bottom left is the Chevron lobby. That was that LEED Gold certified building. It was a priority for them. They're an oil company, if you didn't know, right? So I thought it was important. It was really important to have that attitude of respecting their environment. And the best thing they did beyond this that LEED made them do was turn their office space, and I'm sorry I didn't give you a picture of this, into a daylit filled, wonderful space to work, right? The daylit lighting point caused a conversation with them, just prompting immediately, no, you can't put offices on the perimeter anymore. You've got to let everybody have access to that light. And here's the rule that says you have to do it that way. So to me, that's the benefit of some of those programs, to say, it's not just me saying this, other people said it's important too.
Right. I love
on the right. Yeah.
Some things in, like you just mentioned that part about the Chevron place and whatnot. And I think that's really important. You're right. We don't celebrate it enough. The small victories that, because our profession is so weirdly unknown, I don't know why, in the social hemisphere of life, sneaking in these small victories, everybody's like, what are you talking about? And it's like, you have no idea, right? How we have to, you're trying to navigate and negotiate and educate the client. Those two examples you just said were huge successes on, look, let me try to explain to you why this is important. I think that's really encouraging, and we need to do more to tell people how small victories lead to large successes.
Completely. I'm going to tell you another one about the project on the right. That's an apartment building that it's actually just finished on Canal Street and it's being occupied. So typical developer, lovely client, love working with the nicest people in the universe. They're from Dallas and they're so country and so Southern and all this, everything else about it. But bottom line was they needed 330 apartments to make money and make this project a go right on it. So two things that happened. One of our other partners, their typical model was a block building, all walls the same height, build it as low and low slung like a donut as you could possibly do. So that one little move to drop the front in the middle so that the Canal Street had this really awesome balcony for when our parades come back, but also get sunlight into the middle of that donut. Knowing when to push on that and say, yeah, we got to do it now. This is the right time to do it. The other thing was the zoning code, and I'll, give some props for the zoning code that does do good stuff for Canal Street, that we had to navigate a little bit. Wanted you to put people facing spaces, retail, on the first floor. Well, retail doesn't work on Upper Canal Street right now. There's just not enough demand. You're going to have vacant storefront. You've seen it up and down those blocks. So what we did was say, okay, you want people on Canal Street? We'll give you people. We're going to give you the people that live here on Canal Street. So 3/4 of that facade is the gym and the public amenities space with the piano bar and the demonstration kitchen. So it's a space that has life, not meeting the letter of the law, but it is a space that has life, right? So you push those two things and together you say, eventually, sometime in the future, this building is going to outlive all of us, I hope. If retail comes back to Canal, yeah, go to town. Those spaces are convertible, right? Make it happen. So
nice. Those are nice little secret stories that I think everyone needs to hear more of, which is the whole point of this series, because those are the little mini, okay, why did that happen exactly that way? And how did you influence this? And how did you educate? It's like those lovely little maneuvers.
Right.
I love that. So one of the other things is what advice do you have for firms? So as you've grown in your career, right? You started off as the young architect who had to listen to everyone, and now you're the large architect that everybody has to listen to. So what advice do you have for firms managing people, and how have you been able to navigate the idea of management of people and team building?
Yeah. Well, I started off by stumbling through it, and and the important part was that I had no fear because I didn't know what I was heading into. So I think that attitude towards just you'll figure it out. Don't worry, no fear about going into there is really important. For me, it's been always to recognize that I'm not the smartest person in the room, that there are people here with lots of experience, especially, you know, if I was a young studio manager managing someone who had 30 years experience ahead of me, I say, stop and take respect for what they're doing. Like giving respect before you expect to get it back. That was the most important thing. And meeting people where they need that respect to be. You know, so much of my day, so much of my work now is about talking to our folks in the office and meeting them where they're at in terms of what they need. Do they need reassurance that the design they did was good or right? Or do they need to be said, hey, you know what, it really didn't work. You've got to do something else and go there. Or encourage them that they have the skills to figure it out on their own, you know, empowering everybody else to be independent thinkers. And I try to do that by leading with a attitude of constant curiosity, right? So, you know, I want to know how everything works. And I think that that's kind of a fundamental thing that happens to a lot of people who are architects, is that you want to know. You've taken apart your kitchen sink too, and you've probably tried to get under your house and do some framing, even if you didn't know how to do it, or your bicycle or whatever. And you bring that same attitude of curiosity towards the work that your team is doing, and it just instantly puts you on this level of showing respect. And you don't have to push your authority then when you give respect. You know, it then becomes, I want to do this, and I want to show you how I work.
I love that attitude of constant curiosity. We need to come up with phrases for this storytelling series for each one, and that one is great. I love that, which is the way that the attitude of constant curiosity that commands respect. That's great. Great.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And look, I mean, I'm never going to be the tallest person in the room. Sometimes I'm the loudest. So, you know, I think you got to accept what your own personal physical frame is going to present to someone in the room, and then work with it, right? And live with your own skin, you know, comfortable. And that comfortability is the important key to getting that relationship with your clients, when they will tell you when something's wrong, because you want to know about it before it becomes that angry email and that, God forbid, letter from their lawyer. You didn't do our project right, and we're not going to pay you the last 20%. No, you want to have that relationship up front, right? And it's true everywhere in life, right? Yeah, we should all probably be part-time psychiatrists. If only we could fix our own relationships like we fix our professional ones.
Ooh, isn't that the truth? Lord help me. So tell me a little bit about the slide. You don't have to help me. I'm just kidding. Tell me about the slides that we have here, and what special little small secret or exchange made these two occur and become as successful as they are, and what are they?
Yeah, so the one on the left is the Plaquemines Medical Center, way down south, to the point where we're basically, where we're standing taking this photo, you turn around 50 feet and there's water behind you. Behind the building, another 200 feet, there's water over there, and it's getting closer every day. It's like the last medical center on your way to the Gulf right now. It was rebuilt because of FEMA. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason why I chose this photo was to show you the ramps that get up to the emergency room in the back. And the purpose of those ramps was specifically designed so that they would be wide enough and flat enough to take boats when this place flooded again. Water came up 16 feet in this area, and we built the main level of the hospital, which is the middle level, at the freeboard elevation at 23 feet above grade. So that's that. So the secret thing about this photo is that I'm standing next to, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget his name, the photographer, who I found out grew up in Tulsa, because I spent the day taking pictures with him of this project. So that became that little moment in time connection. And we had, I didn't want to take a picture under the trees. I was like, we need to take a picture of the building, like inside, let's go. And he's like, no, let's spend an hour and wander around in the hot sun and try to find some trees and do it. So we did. And I thought it was just a lovely thing. And it reminds me where this building is in the life of Louisiana, more than all the technical stuff we spent, 2.5 years putting the technical bits of the building together inside after you remember. So it's so you don't forget that where this building is and where it is in terms of the lifeline of the state and global warming and coastal erosion and everything else.
It's funny because everybody, once again, if they people that don't know architects always think of, oh, they're just building a house or whatever. But if you ever say, no, I actually did a building that the main office was 23 feet up in the air, or the main floor was 23 up in the air, and there's these huge ramps to allow for boats to come up there, they'd say, what are you even talking about? There's no such building. And now I can actually say, but there is.
But there is.
Because that is a bizarre program which exudes great architecture, and by the way, the composition of the photograph is brilliant though. It's nice with the trees and the branches above and then the shadow of those trees on the grass below. It's lovely.
I'll remember who it is and then let everybody know later. I can't believe I've forgotten my Tulsan person. And the one on the right is a really recent project, and it is for the Tubman Campus, the Montessori campus of Crescent City Schools. And I love this picture. It's on the West Bank, and it is next to Berman Stadium, Berman Park, off of General Meyer and Shirley Drive and Lawrence Street up in that area. It's this amazing 11-acre campus that had been sold by the Archdiocese soon after Katrina to the school board to use as swing space. And it's this little gym for this beautiful campus. And I've said it's another, year and a half in the making, driving around the West Bank with our developer and the client, trying to find a suitable school. And the fact that they got this land to do this great, amazing Montessori work with these kids out there was just tremendous. So what was going to originally be a classroom redo, quick and dirty, get them in and get them out project turned into this project that was 3/4 landscape because the land was available. And now they have this outdoor classroom space that they have literally never had. They've been living in a building without windows for the last 4 years, without windows, okay? Like, I'm sorry, 1960s, what did you do to us? Ouch.
Right.
Yeah, they were in the old high school next to the Delgado campus on the West Bank, whose name I'm also not going to remember right now. But anyway, just that. So the ability to create an outdoor landscape, collaborate with our landscape team, make that the focus of the project. And then also I love the fact that we haven't taken a single photo of this campus because we keep getting pictures from the teachers and from the administrators of all the kids outside playing. And we're like, yep, that's good. We're going to use all of these. We don't need to have anybody else come to campus and tell us how beautiful this is, because the most beautiful thing about it is the kids, using the space.
That's very poignant and good. Go to the next slide because I want you to talk about that church, that school more. I think that's a great story that you were telling us prior. Go back to that one.
Yeah, so the one on the bottom right, that's the Kenilworth school that was done for.
Yeah.
It was the Orleans Parish. It was RSD and OPSB at the time too, right? LEED Gold certified project. A little bit more on the team for that one. That was really when I learned how to become a studio manager too, and deal with people of many different types and attitudes. And, I had a very senior architect who needed constant reassurance that he was doing a great job, but was just a fabulous mentor for young people at the same time. It's just, you needed that little, you did do a great job on that. Nice work. That sketch is beautiful. Because if he didn't get that, he'd just pout for days and days. But sorry, these pictures make me think of these stories. I haven't looked at them in a long time. But the other thing it did was we together value engineered this project as a team 3 times before we finished CDs. And instead of it becoming a thing where the team's like, oh, we cut more money out of the project, it's gone, it's dead, let's just finish the drawings and get done. It became this thing that was so invigorating to figure out how to make it get in budget, how to maintain the essence of the project without losing it. We had the gym on the 2nd floor, and it became a beast, a monster. It just ate up all our money in stairs and egress and fireproofing. And finally, the project architect who was working in my studio on this just said, you know what? We've got to move the gym. And I said, okay, we're in 65% DDs. I guess we could do that. So we moved the gym down. And we pulled the library back from being a whole other element to being the front piece of the school. So then it reinforced the idea of the main project. So that front big window is the library, and it's the community center, the one that we're staring at, in the foreground that's kind of this picture's pointing at. Mm-hmm. So that change, reminded us, you can still do things that reinforce the project when you have to work your budget. And by golly, that project came in budget. So,
yay.
So, and it got built and it was beautiful, and that's my story. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, it was a great project. It reminds me of like I told you, the Diamond Ranch School from Morphosis really has a lot of the same endearing qualities of that I like about shape and form. I mean, I don't know how they were derived, but since it's lead silver, I'm sure there's a lot of overlap information that had to be transposed to make this achievable.
Oh yeah.
Right. Are there any, I guess in closing, and before we open it up for the Q&A, by the way, you've been talking for 50 minutes. Congratulations.
Yes. I told you I could do it for 4 hours when you asked me that question about how the profession has changed. So good job on cutting me off.
No, I'm not cutting you off. I'm not. I was going to actually ask you in closing, what, if anything, I didn't ask, or are there, besides the incredible climate about the constant curiosity, what can you leave us with, one or two comments about how your life has forever changed in choosing the profession as an architect, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent?
Yes. Well, I think there are sacrifices to what we do here. It is a profession that, it's your second or third marriage or your first or second child, depending on your situation in life. And I think you need to surround yourself with people that accept that about you, that this is going to be your passion. And that's one of the things that I've been, working on growing, is you got to grow that network of people who support you in being that passionate person. Right. And I think the other thing is that you've got to prioritize yourself. And I mean this about your own personal profession, as well as the firm you're in and everything else, because nobody else will. It's a hard thing to do, if you're, like I mentioned about selling and how it's got to be part of your natural attitude towards the passion of what you're doing, but prioritizing both yourself, what you want to be doing in this profession, what you want your firm to be doing, and sharing those priorities with people, because you could do all the most fabulous research you want in the world about next generation well buildings, the incredible designs. If you don't share that with anybody else, it's never going to happen. So pick somebody and do that, and figure out who that is, who that network of people is. And once you find that network, it starts to grow connections that you'll make. And then the last one is, maybe I've been watching too much Netflix lately too, but I feel like there's too many motivational speakers going on. But to always say yes, even when you're not sure how you're going to accomplish something. Yes, try it.
Good.
Okay. Right. So that's my sage advice in the 20th year of practice in New Orleans. This is a very strange way to speak, because I feel like I'm having a wonderful personal conversation with you, Terry, which is great. I'm so glad you did this. Thank you so much for being here. I think you bring out the best in people in this conversation always. And is anyone out there in the ether? Hopefully that's.
The other part of it, we really have 18 people that are watching us do this. So that's a good thing. And I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking this opportunity. I was going to have Aaron and Lauren take over to do the Q&A, to make sure there are not any questions that anybody has to offer. I don't know how to assimilate that or make it happen.
No real questions so far. Jessica says, thank you, Angela and Terry.
Yeah. You're welcome, Jessica Walker. Another fabulous person. That's a whole other story we could tell.
You know,
Jessica.
no, what? Tell me.
Oh, about Jessica?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you really privately about her, how awesome she is.
She is awesome.
Anyway, she's so awesome. I want to say she worked at Mathis for a bit in her amazing career, and now she's got her own firm. There are still people at Mathis that talk about her. They're like, man, I wish Jessica could come back. She could totally figure this out. She would be that person, right? I want to be that person.
This is not fair. I can't talk. We don't care, Jessica.
I know. You told us you were here. Now we get to talk about you.
Now we get to talk about you. Well, needless to say, she's definitely helped me navigate this experience. And I'm truly appreciative of everything that you've done. And you know what? I will end this on one other question, because we have 8 minutes if no one else is going to ask this. What is the difference between the AIA State Louisiana being president and then like AIA New Orleans? Do you feel like you're prepared, especially during COVID-19? What have you had to do? Give us a story about that, and that will probably be a great ending. And you should probably make it funny, not sad.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so two things. As you guys probably know, because you're all members on this call, we just recently got a new executive director at the state level. So that's been amazing. And guess when she started? 6 weeks before COVID. So both feet jumping in forward. So the thing that's been different working with AIA Louisiana than New Orleans on that level is the connection with national, right? I got a personal phone call from Jane Frederick, a week after our stay-at-home order got put into place. And that thought that we're connected at that national level was just instantaneous. And Kathleen Gordon, our executive director, has been on calls with executive directors, and I've been on some with her. We've been, talking about this as a disaster response issue from AIA nationally. That's been really cool to see those people stepping up in terms of that. And then that whole aspect of it being personal. And then the other thing we've learned is, on the funny note, is how badly you can communicate on Zoom if you don't try hard. That's been the good part. Learning about who's got good Wi-Fi at home and who hasn't, and who's got a bunch of birds in their backyard or lives on the highway. And it's been this really nice, as funny, as impersonal as this connection is, it's been more personal, I feel like, as my connection is than it has ever been, to our state chapter and the people that are there and working it. And I can tell you that we're all living through all that uncertainty and what's going to happen. And, the number one priority as a board we have is fiscal responsibility. So that's been the first step that we've tried to challenge. And then on top of that was membership support. And I'd love to hear more too from the members on how we can continue to support them. The advocacy that we're doing at the state, huge right now. We're with our legislative pusher, what's the word? Our advocate at the state.
Lobbyist?
Our lobbyist. On the phone with him this whole session, every other day. It's been an hour on the phone with Kathleen. She's been sitting in on all of these sessions. We've been on the phone together. And what's the priority? How can we get business moving? Tell us what's wrong with architecture, and tell us what's wrong with the contracting system. What's going to happen to our economy in the next? What do we need to do to get it moving? Getting construction listed as an essential service in Louisiana. Yeah, guess what? We were part of that, right? So architecture doing stuff, making sure that our businesses stay running, our firms stay running. The next challenge is making sure that we reoccupy safely. AIA published that guide nationally. I encourage everybody to take a look at that on the reentry guide, and there are firms that are following suit. And those are really important. And it's outside of the realm of traditional architecture, right? But we can totally be the support people for good reoccupying. And I can tell you, I know there are counties across the country that are just dying, looking for architects to help lead this reoccupation of buildings challenge. And the time is now. So if you're not busy, call a county, call a parish, help them out, do the networking that way, because that's there. We're going to be really vital to all that. The hygienists are there and they're doing their thing too, but they don't understand workstation layouts and,
Right.
circulation through a copy room and schools. Man, this is going to be the next challenge for us. What and how our school is going to change? It can't be every other day school for the next 2 years. We're not going to survive like that at half capacity. Anyway, let's be part of the solution.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And
Yeah.
you have
Thank you, Gary.
a wealth of information and a pleasurable experience interviewing you.
This
Thank
is
you.
a
So brave to do this.
piece of cake. I'm sitting in my living room and I figured out how to turn my screen so you can't see all of my laundry. So, bonus.
You look great. You look fabulous.
You look fabulous.
All right. I think that's it.
All right. Call me, y'all, if you need anything. Just give me a ring.
Okay.
Text me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, thanks so much to both Angela and Terry. Thank you, Angela, for sharing your story, and Terry for being all of our voices and asking questions. I'll just go over briefly a couple of our upcoming learning opportunities. June 2nd, we have an HSW webinar presentation from professional affiliate members Schluter. We have another one June 10th from Hahn, and June 16th, we have another HSW webinar from Construction Specialties. So please visit us at our website to sign up for any of those. Also take a moment to join our LinkedIn members forum, visit our Facebook, and if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to either Lauren or I at our email. So thanks again to everyone for showing up. We've got a couple comments from Marie at KV Workspace saying great conversation, thanks so much. Caroline Meyer also saying thanks. So it seems like everyone really enjoyed this, and thanks
Stayed
to
awake.
everyone for showing up. Yeah.
I hope you all had happy hour too, since it's Friday. Mine starts at 4 online. Zoom call if you want to join our office happy hour. I'll take special guests since you all hung in to the end.
Yeah, send us the link.
Yeah, I will. You gonna join, Aaron? You join? Okay, you're in. You took it. You get 50 questions. It's a sketching exercise, but you don't have to be done until next week. So that's our.
Okay, all right. Well, can I write a poem instead?
You could sketch a poem.
Okay.
So everyone has to sketch, even if you're the front desk, operator. You've got to sketch.
Got it.
And you could be the best. You never know.
All right, look out.
Try it. Just say yes. It's scary.
Yes.
You can do it. Okay.
You can do it. All right.
All
Bye.
right. Thanks again, and everyone have a good rest of your day.
Bye.